Welcome to the Mrs. Beastly channel.
Blood Moon Chronicles Chapter 21 Loomed in the static. The smile on my face felt like it had cracked, splintering across my cheeks like dried clay. It wasn't the expression of relief I should have been feeling. It was heavier. Heavier than the brickwork pressing against my back. Heavier than the air that tasted like copper and old pennies. "Don't!" Bubba rasped from the shadows. His voice sounded distant, as if he were speaking through a wall of deep water. "Don't you go grinning on me now, Doc. Not when we're standing in the middle of a damn graveyard." I looked down at my hand. The blood key had gone cold hours ago, or maybe minutes. Time in this alley felt less like a river and more like a dripping faucet, intermittent, maddening, and prone to skipping. I turned my palm over. The veins beneath the skin weren't blue anymore, they were black. Not the color of a bruise, but the color of oil on water, swirling. "It's not just a key, Bubba," I said. My voice sounded wrong too, layered with a static buzz that made my teeth ache. "It's a frequency." "Great," Mike muttered from further back. He was leaning against the dumpster, his head bowed. Shadows clung to him like wet wool. "She's going full witch mode now. Just what we needed." I could feel them watching me. Not just Bubba and Mike. Them. The ones in my periphery that I couldn't quite place in the reflection of the rusted alleyway door. They were getting bolder since the key woke up inside my skin. Or maybe it was the moon. God, the moon. It felt like an open sore above us, weeping light into a world that didn't want to be seen. "Focus," I said, clenching my fist until the key bit into my palm. The pain was sharp and grounding. "We need to move before the static clears." "The what?" Bubba pushed off the wall, his boots crunching on broken glass. He froze. "Did you hear that? Did anyone else?" "Shut up," I whispered, raising a hand. The air had changed. It wasn't silent anymore. A low, rhythmic hiss-hiss click vibrated in my skull, like an old television turned to static but closer. Louder. The shadows between the dumpsters were stretching toward us, not because of the light source, but because they wanted to be near the key. "The alley," I said, pointing down the narrow passage. It's flickering." Bubba squinted into the gloom. "That ain't a street lamp failing, Rhonda. That's reality glitching out." The ground beneath us shuddered. Dust rained from the brickwork above, falling upward for a split second before succumbing to gravity again. A puddle of water on the asphalt rippled without wind, and in it, I saw my reflection blink. But I hadn't blinked yet. "Mike," I said, turning to him, "did you see that?" He wasn't looking at his hands or the ground. He was staring past me, right at where the shadows of the alley met the brick wall. His eyes were wide, pupils blown out until there was no white left. "They're watching us," he whispered. "Who is, Mike? Who's watching?" "The people who own this one." A sound erupted from the darkness ahead. A wet, tearing noise, like canvas ripping in a wind tunnel. The hiss-hiss click of the static grew louder, forming words now. Not English. Not anything human. It was the sound of the universe tuning out and in again. "We need to leave," Bubba said, his voice dropping an octave, devoid of its usual gravelly charm. He reached for the shotgun at his hip, but his hand passed through the wood like it was made of mist. "Okay, that's not good. Mike," I shouted as a shape detached itself from the wall behind him. It wasn't a person. It was a tear in the fabric of the alleyway, jagged and weeping static. Inside the tear, shapes moved, limbs too long, too many joints. "Get back." I lunged for Mike, grabbing his jacket, but he didn't move fast enough. The thing inside the tear reached out, a hand that looked like it was made of television snow and bone, and grabbed him by the throat. "Mike!" Bubba roared, firing a round into the air. The shot rang out, but it sounded like a stone thrown in a lake, muffled, distant. Mike gasped, his hands clawing at the invisible grip. He didn't struggle violently, he looked curious, as if he were being pulled gently by something he recognized. "Let him go!" I screamed, raising the key. The black veins on my arm pulsed in time with the static. "You don't know what that is." The thing paused. It tilted its head, and for a second, The static coalesced into a face. A human face? No. A map of every person who had ever died in this town's history. Every victim. And then it spoke with Mike's voice, but layered with 1,000 others. The price is due. I didn't think. I moved on instinct and terror. I raised the key and slammed it into the space between us, right where the air was warping around the tier. Crack! A shockwave of pure white noise blasted outward. The brickwork vibrated so hard my teeth rattled. The alley screamed, a collective sound of every light bulb in the building blowing out at once. Then, silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. I was on my knees, gasping for air, the key sizzling in my hand like a hot iron. The tear in reality was gone. Mike was slumped against the wall, but he was breathing. Shallow. Broken. "Mike!" I scrambled to him, grabbing his shoulders. They were cold. Too cold. "Bubba! Check on him!" The older man stepped out from behind a dumpster, his face pale in the moonlight. The alley looked normal again. Just bricks and grime. But when I looked down at the ground, my boots weren't leaving footprints anymore. They were fading into nothingness. "I'm here, Doc," Bubba said softly. I think it worked. For now." "Worked," I snapped, turning on him. "He was taken. That thing took him." "No," Bubba corrected, looking past me at the wall where Mike was slumped. He was still breathing, but his skin was grayish, translucent in patches. Through one of them, I could see a faint blue pulsing light beneath the dermis. "He's not taken. Not yet." "What is that?" I whispered, touching his arm. It felt like touching ice water. "Something else," Bubba said grimly. He looked up at the sliver of moon visible through the gap between buildings. It was gone. The blood moon had vanished behind a cloud, or maybe it had never been there to begin with. The static. I think that was just the opening act. I stood up, my legs shaking. My hand was still clenched around the key, but now, when I looked at it, I didn't see an object. I saw a door, and behind me in the back of my mind, I could hear them again. The static wasn't just noise anymore, it was a choir waiting to be let in. "We can't stay here," I said, helping Bubba lift Mike's arm over his shoulder. "If that thing knows where we are—" "It does," a voice whispered from the shadows of the fire escape above us. We froze. The air smelled like ozone and burnt hair again. A figure sat perched on the railing, legs dangling carelessly over the edge. It was Dave. But he wasn't wearing his accountant's slacks or his button-downs anymore. He wore robes made of shadows that seemed to be stitched together from static and smoke. "Dave," I stepped forward, my voice trembling. You're dead." "Am I?" he laughed, a sound like dry leaves skittering on pavement. "Not yet. Not really. Some of us just learn how to listen better than others." "What do you want?" Bubba growled, raising his shotgun again. This time, the shell casings clattered to the ground with a real, solid clink. "To show you where the door opens," Dave said, pointing a long, thin finger at me, at my hand. "She's the lock, kid, but she doesn't know it yet." He looked at Bubba. "And you, well, you're just along for the ride." "Show us," I asked, stepping toward him. The key burned against my palm. "There is no show. We're in an alley." Dave's eyes rolled back into his head, and when he spoke again, it wasn't Dave. It was 1,000 voices speaking as one, layered over the sound of static rising like a tide. "We are not just watching anymore," the air seemed to vibrate. "The screen is full." The world dissolved into gray pixels and white noise. The alley stretched out before us, elongating like taffy, turning into a tunnel of flickering light bulbs that led nowhere but everywhere else. I felt my body detach from its center of gravity, floating upward, toward the ceiling where the static was thickest. "Rhonda," Bubba's voice was far away now. "Don't let it take you. Not again." "Not again?" I thought, panic flaring in my chest as the static began to swallow me whole. What does that mean? What aren't they telling me? The last thing I saw before the light took me completely was Mike's head snap up from where he'd slumped against the wall. His eyes were no longer black or white. They were entirely blank, like two fresh holes in a sheet of paper waiting for ink. "Welcome home," they whispered, It's time to wake up. I wasn't sure if I was waking up at all. Please stay tuned for the next installment of Moon Chronicles. Oh, by the way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you soon, my friends.